welcome to Temple of Akasha, the home of embodied spirituality with me, Natasha. A couple of updates before we dive in. If you're watching this live, our monthly community soul circle is on tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK time with the theme of containing the vital power of the solar plexus, bringing our energy back to our center, reclaiming our power, reclaiming our energy, sealing leaky energy. This is especially important for empaths and highly sensitive people who are feeling very disempowered in their use and management of energy. And I've also reopened my one-to-one sessions. So if you're interested in booking in a session with me, I'm now offering 3 investment options to reflect and to support different levels of accessibility depending on where you are financially in your process. So if you're interested in any of those, the information is in the description box below. Let's dive into this really juicy topic of authenticity as a portal to deeper intimacy, not just with other people, but with ourselves. So what is becoming increasingly apparent to me is that we are being invited energetically at this time on earth to become stewards of radical truth, to become conduits of truth, conduits of divinely guided truth, honesty, and authenticity. And when we actually allow ourselves to live from that space, life becomes a lot less complicated. It's very easy in this world that encourages distortion and illusion for us to get wrapped up and tangled up in lots of different ways of expressing and embodying that aren't actually authentic to us. And it is a very liberating process to recognize that all that is being asked of you at a soul level is for you to show up as you are and to honor your truth in each and every moment. And so really the question I've been asking myself, my clients, the people in my soul network recently, is how can we more deeply honor truth in each and every moment? And it's incredible what happens when we actually allow ourselves to just be real with what's here right now, without masquerading, without slapping on a facade, without having to get rigid and fixed into roles and identities and constructs, and just fucking drop all of that and be right here with what's present right now. What if that is the invitation and the highest way you can serve the world? Not by becoming something else, not by reaching for a certain state, but simply descending into the deepest truth in your embodied experience right now. I had an experience recently with someone very, very special and dear to me, which I'll be speaking about more on this channel in due course. And I'm going through an incredible process of heart opening as I've entered into a sacred union. And I was speaking to my beloved about this process of opening and contracting in the heart space as we are receiving more love, as we're giving more love. It can be a tender process. And I had a particularly kind of tight and contracted heart on the day of this conversation because it's a lot to open fully to all that we've asked for, all that we're calling in, all that the heart is calling in. It can feel vulnerable. It can feel scary. It's not a one and done process. The heart does move through these ebbs and flows, and it is a very tender and intricate process. And in the past, when I've gone through these expansions and contractions where, you know, I'm opening to life, I'm receiving more, that can feel scary. I might close, I might fall into, you know, fear-based conditioning for a while and then open again. I've tried to masquerade that ebb and flow process, that flux state, by pretending that I feel just, you know, equanimous and normal. And actually, it was really liberating to sit with my beloved and to just share that I feel really closed in this moment, not just to you, but in my life in general, because it's quite a scary and vulnerable process to open to life, to really trust that this love is all that it feels in my heart to be. That this life that we're creating together, that we're moving into together, is truly all that it feels to be, you know, this expansive, easeful, beautiful, divinely ordained experience. You know, it almost feels too good to be true to the ego structure and the part that's used to scarcity and chaos and, you know, tumultuous conditions. And it was amazing that just sinking into that radical truth and sharing that and not masquerading actually supported the process of the heart softening and opening again. And that really inspired today's video, as I've been really leaning more into this process personally, but also with my clients, of instead of reaching for some standard, instead of reaching outside of this now moment for some other state or way of being, which is often encouraged in spiritual narratives, can we just really descend into what's present and what's here right now? And this is really the process of integrating all of the fragmented parts of our consciousness, integrating the light, the dark, you know, the wholeness of who we are. And really what we're being invited to do during this process of radical awakening and returning to the heart, returning to love, is to widen our embrace, not to push aside or diminish or deny the parts that feel uncomfortable, that don't fit the narratives that we've created, that don't fit societal standards, that don't, you know, don't feel comfortable to be with. That's not the highest invitation. If we are to deny parts of who we are, how can we ever truly return to a state of wholeness? We are so multifaceted and so dynamic as beings, and we often hold paradoxical parts. We often hold parts that seem to be at odds with one another. And rather than creating lots of tension in our system where we have to choose, am I this thing or am I this thing? What if we were to widen our embrace from a space of love, compassion, and tenderness, and to say, what if I'm all of these things? What if I'm not one rigid role or identity, but actually I'm a multifaceted being, like a diamond, with many facets, with many different states that can operate from many different frequencies, because you are a multidimensional being. We are multidimensional beings, even though this fear-based matrix has tried to convince us otherwise and really have us identified with the gross level of material reality. We are multifaceted, multidimensional. We are not singularly faceted at all. And so it's very normal that you are going to experience parts of you that feel in conflict or at odds with one another, that you will have many different expressions and many different ways that you want to express in the world. And so actually, can we widen our embrace of ourselves to say, this anger is welcome here, this grief is welcome here, this resentment of my parents is welcome here, this part that's super weird and, you know, that I judge as really geeky or gawky or, you know, uncool is welcome here. This part that, you know, I don't feel is beautiful is welcome here. That this imperfectly perfect human experience is welcome. You know, can we widen our hearts? Can we open our hearts and arms to all of us and recognize that when we do that, we are beginning to marry our true divine nature, which is not bound or tethered to one thing or state, that we are the all experiencing itself through the illusion of separation and individuation. And so we're really beginning to marry spirit and matter, you know, soul and ego, when we begin to widen the embrace instead of excluding or denying or avoiding certain parts. So this is shadow work in motion. You know, this is shadow work in action. It's choosing to integrate instead of fragment. It's choosing to include instead of exclude. It's choosing to return to love instead of pledging our allegiance to the severing and to this idea of separation from the whole. And so I really invite you to sit with that sense within your being of honoring truth. And the question that I continue to pose to my clients in sessions I'm having at the moment is, what is the deepest truth that wants to be honored in this moment? And it can be a very cathartic practice to just speak through the voice center, through the throat center, what is true, perhaps physically in your body or in your conditional reality, in your home, in your work situation, in your relationships, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Can you gift yourself the freedom that comes with just being bloody honest and true? You know, we create so much unnecessary complexity because we try and dance around the truth. We try and, you know, run circles around the truth, and we try and bend and make the truth pliable and malleable. And something that became very, very clear to me in the last few months is that, you know, the truth, capital T truth, is not a pliable, malleable thing. It doesn't waver. It just is. Objective truth just is, right? And we can create as many stories and narratives as we like to try and deny that truth. But ultimately, at some point, we have to face truth. Whether that's now or in 10 years or in another incarnation, we all have to face truth in the end. So can we gift ourselves the liberation of honoring truth right now? And that actually, can we recognize that when we honor truth, we're actually being guided to our highest path and our deepest desires, the deepest desires of the heart. That truth, the truth that's being communicated through us, to us through the heart, through the, you know, the subtle realms, through this web of vibration frequency, it's actually guiding us home. It's guiding us to the very thing that we most want, which is love, which is to return to the whole, which is to merge with love, in love, through love, as love. And so there is an intelligence to following and honoring truth. It might not be comfortable for the ego structure and for the human, you know, especially if you've gone through a very radical awakening or a Kundalini rising experience. You'll know that the Kundalini is demanding that it's a purification. It's a purification process. It's demanding that we honor truth. And it can be often in a very brutal feeling way to the humanity, right? That this relationship is done, you know, that your body needs to be cleansed, that you're not eating or nourishing or receiving light or receiving nature in a way that's truly sustainable, you know, that where you live is not conducive to your system, that the work you're doing is deeply at odds with your soul, and that it has to change. And sometimes life will force us to meet deeper truth if we're not willing to uncover and meet that truth within ourselves in a more organic way, in a more self-motivated way. So authenticity, when we honor it, which is simply just being with what's here, being with what's real, expressing what's real, is such a powerful portal to liberation, to deeper intimacy, to vulnerability, and actually to marrying with our deepest desires. And it's also terrifying. It's also terrifying to open to what is deeply authentic to us. We have employed many guards, many strategies to hide our authentic selves, because in the past, perhaps our authenticity was rejected as children. Perhaps who we were as sensitive, open, empathic beings wasn't honored. You know, many people on the planet have experienced very harsh, abrupt, or abrasive upbringings from people that were unconscious, that didn't know any better. And from those conditioned experiences, we close down. The world doesn't feel like a safe space. And so we're learning as adults, as awakening beings, to reopen the heart, to open to life again, to open to love again. It takes tremendous courage. It takes tremendous dedication. It's not an easy process. But if we actually truly want to live a fulfilling and purposeful life, that is the only path forwards. It's to honor truth, to honor authenticity, to honor love, to honor what is being emanated from the heart space at the deepest levels of our being. So I invite you to play with this in your life experience. How can you honor what's true and authentic to you in each and every moment in a deeper way? And this isn't a conditional thing. It doesn't matter where you are or who you're with. Your truth can always be honored. It's a choice, and it's a choice that only you can make, and one of the big themes we're moving through at the moment is this dance between the heart and the solar plexus, as I've touched on in my previous video. And that is this dance between, how do I open this heart that that beats in service to the one, that beats in service to the web of life, that beats in service to love? How do I open this compassionate, tender, vulnerable, intimate space within me and still honor my individuality, my power, my boundaries, my value, my worth as an individual, right? So these two centers, primary chakra centers in the body, they are the bridging centers between the lower centers and the upper centers. They are bridging the ego centers and matter, the centers considered kind of concerned with the material world, with the upper centers that are concerned with, the etheric planes and the subtle realms, the less abstract, the more abstract and the less tangible aspects of our reality. We're bridging the two when these centers dance, and it can feel like quite a conflicting process, because it feels like we're having to honor things that are very paradoxical. But actually, there's a beautiful marriage that can occur when we have open hearts that choose to honor love, and also we have a connection to what feels authentic. That's how we can most serve the world. When we are tuned in and tapped into what feels true to us, knowing our individual values and boundaries, honoring that, and then moving from a state of love into the world. It's a true act of service to live in that way. And that's actually what is being asked of us on this planet. Your role as an awakening being, as a sensitive soul here on earth, is not to fulfill a certain job description. It's not to earn a certain amount of money. It's not to adhere to some standard, some arbitrary standard in society. It's to be the most radically authentic expression of the one that you can be, that you came here to be. That's your dharmic path. And so it's amazing how honesty, transparency, authenticity, we think is going to lead us to more unsafety and more danger, which is perhaps what we experienced in the past. But actually, it actually has the potential, especially as adults, when we are, in touch with our boundaries and our center, it has the potential to actually lead us into deeper states of safety, into deeper states of intimacy, closeness, connection, feeling deeply bonded to the people in our lives in a healthy way, feeling deeply bonded to ourselves because we're not hiding anymore. We're being true. It's a homecoming when we choose to honor authenticity instead of favoring masks and facades and roles that aren't true. They will always feel inauthentic. They will always feel yucky and at odds with us because we're playing a role. You're not here to be an actor. You're not here to be an actor in your own life. Your life isn't a performance, and most of us have been living up until this point on the planet, performing, being very performative in our lives, whether that's at work, playing the role of mother, father, good girl, bad girl, whatever role we've been playing up until this point. It feels so at odds to be performative, and it feels like a cage to be something that we're not, to express something we're not genuinely feeling, to say yes when we mean no, to say no when we mean yes. Can we just drop all of that bullshit? That's the invitation for humanity moving forwards. If we truly want to evolve in an organic, heart-centered, God-led way, can we honor what's true instead of dancing around the truth? We're not children anymore. The time for spiritual maturation has come. It is upon us. If we are to survive and thrive as a species, it depends on our own individual and collective alchemical process and our honoring of truth. And it starts with each of us. Can we open the heart? Can we sink into deeper truth, deeper authenticity, more radical self-acceptance? Can we bring all of the scattered parts of our soul, all of these fragmented aspects of our consciousness back into the fold with the embrace of love? Love is the only force big enough to hold all of the polarities and contrasting elements of this human experience. So that is how you liberate yourself from these binds of shame, guilt, denial, anger, the things that feel very at odds and difficult to alchemize. We don't create war and conflict narratives with them. We open our arms to them and say, you are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see you. I honor you. So whatever it is that you're experiencing, can you lean into it instead of pushing it away, instead of denying it, instead of relegating it to the basement of your being, to the subconscious, to the unconscious, where, because all of our consciousness wishes to express, if it's relegated to the shadows, it will find a less healthy way of presenting itself in your life. A really good example being anger. Most people are dealing with a lot of unconscious anger. And so that can manifest in many ways. For some people, that manifests as lots of reactivity, an anger that is really unhealthy in the way that it expresses. For other people, that diminishment of anger shuts down the fire of the solar plexus to such a degree that they become depressed, lazy, inactive. They struggle to take any action at all. They feel very lethargic, It's actually, there's a deeper invitation here. Anger is not a bad emotion. There are no bad emotions. It's just another expression, very necessary expression, actually, to connect us to our power. So how can you honor, if you're experiencing anger, how can you honor it? What does that anger want to say? What does it need to do to be felt, to be moved, to take up space? I had a really cathartic rage ritual last week for like 3 hours. It was so liberating to say, yes, I fucking feel anger. There's a part of me that fucking hates this person, my dad. There's a part of me that fucking detests him. It's not all of who I am. There's a part that loves him too, but there's a part that fucking detests him. And I punched a pillow and I shouted and I screamed and I stamped and I shook and I let the anger move. And it's incredible how much that process of honoring what's real unlocks and liberates us into more expanded states. We open the cage to which we've always had the key for when we honor our authenticity. So I'm honoring you on this process of awakening remembrance. Thank you for being here with me. If you've got any questions, comments, feedback, they're all welcome. And of course, if you would like to get in touch or book a session with me, as I said, the details for that are in the description box below. I will see you very shortly in the next transmission, and I look forward to connecting with you again.